Hi, John. Emily Miller, Federal Financial Group. It's nice to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me today. I really do appreciate it. And as was mentioned on the phone, as a token of our appreciation, we have the scratch card for you. When we're all said and done here, which will take about 25 minutes or so, we'll get your card scratched off and find out what you've won. Okay? Let me tell you a little bit about Federal Financial Group, John, who we are and what it is that we do. Federal Financial Group is a national company. We have about 70 offices across the United States. And what we do is we teach people about money and how to make the most out of what they have. Our primary goal or mission is to help Americans become financially independent as quickly as possible. John, do you have a definition yourself of financial independence? Perfect. Yep. We just say that financial independence is when you've got enough money in your nest egg that the return on that is enough that you don't have to work anymore. Can if you want to, but you don't have to. You've got your options in front of you. Now, of course, in order to get there the fastest, we're up against some challenges, but that's what our program is there for, to help come up with some solutions to those challenges. Let's take, for instance, the last 10 years. Incomes have gone up, just haven't kept up with the cost of living. And when your income doesn't keep up with the cost of living, it's real easy to find yourself getting into debt. There's lack of security, and your whole financial situation can turn into a big mess. What I find most staggering are the statistics surrounding retirement. Out of the next 100 Americans turning 65 and getting to retire, how many of them do you think will be doing so with at least $35,000 in income a year? I wish that were the case. Actual statistic is only 4%. 4 out of the next 100 will be retiring with $35,000 or more in income. That leaves an awful lot with some serious lack of security. In fact, what inspired me to work with Federal Financial Group in the first place is that I've spent a good portion of my 15-year career working with those who had to retire under just those circumstances. What do you do when you're turning 65 and you don't have enough money? You can look for the rich relative. You can rely on charity or try to rely on charity, or you can keep working. And I found that keep working may be an alternative, though not necessarily the retirement you were looking for. When I go down to Target, every single time I see at least 3 folks that are obviously in their 70s working at Target, either as cashier, stocking shelves, and they're obviously not happy about it. But like so many of the people that I've worked with over the years, their health doesn't allow them to continue to work. So they're forced to look at those first 2 options. And believe me, not everybody has a rich relative, and charity only goes so far. Many of these people wind up living in subsidized housing because they can't afford typical housing costs. They're getting charity to help with their food, but even that sometimes doesn't stretch far enough. At the end of the month, family has to bring over a couple of meals because they don't have $20 left in their bank account. So, it's my personal goal. It's the reason why I started with FFG, to make sure that every person I talk to, I'm able to help them to avoid that situation. I want to help everyone I see become financially independent and have all their options in front of them. And we basically boiled our program down to 7 different steps, and I'm going to rip through these real quick. If you have questions, we'll come back to them, okay? The first step is what we call inspect what you expect. We work with a lot of business owners, upper level management, and we find that even though they're inspecting everything from their employees to their budget to their inventory, you get that retirement prospectus in the mail and you look at it, they don't really understand everything they're seeing. They understand they've been seeing a lot of losses, and it just kind of gets filed in the file cabinet or maybe tossed in the garbage. Probably not the best way to get where you want to go, right? Step number 2 is to increase cash flow. John, what's your definition of cash flow? Good, yeah. We just say that after all the income comes in and all the expenses are paid, cash flow is what you have left. And if we can increase that, it really makes a huge difference. We like to try to examine a budget, and sometimes just repositioning money helps people to find money they didn't even know they had. If we can put that back into their cash flow, it makes a huge difference. Let me ask you a question, John. At the end of the year, do you normally pay in to the IRS, or do you get a tax return? Okay. Yeah, how much? Maybe about 2, 3, 4,000? 3,000? Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, that's pretty common. Actually, I was talking the other day with a couple, and they were really excited. They had gotten a substantial return this past year. $5,000 they got back. And they were excited, and they're telling me all about it, and then they started looking at one another going, hey, wait a minute. We just gave the government hundreds of dollars more every month throughout the whole entire year. We just gave them an interest-free loan. And suddenly they weren't quite as excited about it. We find that if we can sometimes reposition those dollars back into your budget, that helps a lot. That way you're able to take advantage of that without having to wait until the end of the year. Step number 3 is to eliminate debt. How's your debt scenario, John? Yeah, it's pretty typical. Most Americans find that they're going to be out of debt right around the time their mortgage is paid off. That is, if they don't incur any more debt. So we, a lot of times, can show people how, with that same debt, the same monthly payments, and no refinancing, we can cut that time almost in half, okay? And when we do that, if you continue to put the money, invest that money that you had been paying toward the debt, put it away for yourself, it compounds very quickly. And if the end goal is financial independence, it makes a lot of sense to get out of debt sooner rather than later. Step number 4 is develop an emergency fund. And I find that every single person I talk to knows that they need one, and very few people actually have one. There are a couple of things that are very important when it comes to putting together an emergency fund. First, you want to make sure it's in a place that's safe. Next, you want to make sure that it's getting a better return than you're getting in your checking account. Third, it has to be liquid, because if and when that emergency does come up, you need to be able to access that money. That's the whole point, right? Fourth, it's got to be kept separate from the checking and be funded systematically. Have you ever tried to start up an emergency fund within a checking account, John? How'd that work for you? Yeah. Got to be out of sight, out of mind, or that money is getting spent, right? Step 5 is to protect what you have from loss of income, which can result from loss of life. We've all seen the scenario firsthand or heard a very close story of it, where you've got a family, mom, dad, dependent children, and then suddenly mom or dad loses their life. The rest of the family is then stuck with the dilemma of how to keep the fridge stocked, how to keep the lights on, to stay in the house. Federal Financial Group is a brokerage. So many times we're able to come back with options that can help lower the cost of life insurance, thus putting that money back into your budget, increasing your cash flow, and yet still making sure that the necessary protection is there, so that if something should happen to you, the family's going to be financially okay. Those are the first 5 steps. They kind of build the foundation. These are concepts that some people are already at least a little bit familiar with. Really what it comes down to is self-discipline and making sure to live below your means. What really makes us unique and sets us apart is our approach to step 6. This is the big one. This is the one that we say, if you'll listen to us, step number 6 can change the quality of your life. Step number 6 is about building long-term financial independence. Now, there are two elements at play here, John. Two financial battles that you have to win if you want to win the money game. Because good things happen when we win, and we don't like to think about the alternative. First, we've got taxes, because it's not just what you earn, it's what you keep and save that makes the difference. Second is inflation. You have got to get a good rate of return. Have you heard of the rule of 72, John? No? Okay, well, I'm going to explain it to you. I think you're going to find it really interesting. Actually, the rule of 72 was something that Einstein came up with. And Einstein apparently had a lot of time on his hands, and he just had to know how many years is it going to take for money to double at any given interest rate. Okay? And what he found was that if you divide your interest rate into the number 72, that's going to give you how many years it's going to take for your money to double. So let's say, for example, that you're getting a 4% interest rate. Okay, I'm going to take that 4%, divide it into 72, and of course we're going to come up with 18. So according to the rule of 72, every 18 years at 4%, money will double. So let's say we've got $100, okay, and a lot of patience. And you're getting that 4%, and you're going to let that money sit for your 18 years. It's going to double to $200. Now, if you're real patient and you want to wait another 18 years, what's going to happen to that $200? Exactly. It's going to double again. Now you've got $400. Here's the problem. 36 years from now, is $400 going to buy what $100 does today? No, of course not. That's inflation. And you know, one thing we know is that a lot of people today are not getting that 4% interest rate. People are losing purchasing power, and between taxes and inflation at 4%, they never get ahead. And that's a big, big problem. The solution is to obtain a potentially higher interest rate. Let's take a look at an example here. Let's say you're 29. How's that feel? You're 29 again. You're 29 years old and you've got $10,000 to invest. So you put it in the bank and you're getting 4% interest. Now, according to the rule of 72, 36 years out, our money's going to double twice. So we've got $40,000 in the bank. So you're 65, kids are gone, house is paid for, and you want to retire. But you've got $40,000. John, how long is that going to last you? The way you spend money, probably half that time. Just kidding. Maybe a year if you're really frugal. Okay? Not real long. But what if we could have gotten a better interest rate? Okay? How about 6%? At 6% interest, same age, you're still 65 waiting to retire, but instead of having to try and do it at 40,000, we've got 80,000. Things are looking up. What if we could get 8%? 8% shows 65, you've got $160,000. What if we could get 12%? What do you think that number's going to be? Let's take a look. At 12%, at age 65, you've got $640,000. That's amazing. Look at, the only thing we changed was the interest rate. Same age, 29, same amount of time, 36 years out, different interest rate. Not more money, not more time, just a better interest rate. So the big question is, where can you get a decent rate of return with some guarantees so that you can't lose your money? Actually, there are 3 basic strategies. I'm going to go through them real quick, and then I want you to kind of let me know which one makes the most sense to you, so that when we get back together, I know which one's most suitable for you. Okay, now first we have the fixed rate. Okay, everybody's familiar with the fixed rate. You get a fixed rate of return, and you know, a lot of people are going for that these days because they're tired of losing money, or maybe they're at a point in their life where they just can't afford to lose any more money. But the problem is this: you're looking at 1 to maybe 3% interest after taxes and inflation. It's going to be pretty hard to get ahead. The second strategy is the stock market or mutual funds. Okay, now with the second strategy here, you've got the potential for real high returns. In fact, actually, recently the stock market's done real well, and over the last 15 years, or excuse me, over the last 5 years, they've averaged about 15%. Pretty good. But typically it goes in a cycle, and after you've had an uptrend for a while, what's going to happen? We've got that downside market risk, okay? So there's just as much potential to lose your money. And that, of course, is a big problem, and a lot of people have seen it firsthand. It's been kind of scary out there in the past. The third strategy is the equity index strategy. Okay, with the equity index strategy, all the principal you save, as well as any interest earned, is protected. So you can't lose your money. And any interest that is earned is linked to something like the S&P 500. Okay, so with the equity index strategy, you've got all of your guarantees. You can't lose money, and yet you get to participate in the growth of the S&P 500. Here's how it works. All the interest earned, as I said, is linked to something called, or something like the S&P 500, up to 12%. It's 12%, okay? So it might not be 12%. It might only be 3, 6, okay? We don't know. Now, in 2008, the S&P was down 38%. That's pretty drastic. Imagine, John, had you accumulated that $640,000, you would have lost $242,000. Ouch. Okay. With the equity index strategy, the worst you're ever going to see is 0. So, what's the catch? Okay, the worst return you're ever going to see is 0. So that's what we call your floor. Okay, but all the interest credited is capped. The best you're ever going to see is 12%. Okay, anything above and beyond 12%, they're going to keep, and that's part of how they make their money. Sometimes an illustration helps. Let's put you at that 29 years old again, all right? You're 29, you got your $10,000, okay? And we're going to compare the equity index strategy to investing directly in the market. All right, you got your $10,000, and first year things go well. All right, you get a 10% gain, so we're going to go up to $11,000, okay? Good, great, nice start. Both sides look the same. Second year, another increase, up another 10%. That's going to bring your balance on both ends to $12,100. But as we kind of discussed before, what comes up must go down, right? So let's say third year, you see a little bit of that downside market. 20% loss. Now that's happened. The S&P has seen that kind of loss before. Now that's going to bring the market side down to $9,600. That's a significant loss. You're now down below your initial $10,000 principal. Okay, but you're young, right? You're still, we started you at 29, it's a couple of years, you're still in your early 30s. What do they tell you? Right, write it out. You've got lots of time to invest, lots of time to see that upside come back, okay? But maybe next year, not so much. And we go down another 17%. Now you're at a balance of 7,900. Well, let's back up for a minute and go back to the equity index strategy. This whole time that the market's been seeing this loss, you're parked. 12,100 is where you stay. Now, you're not seeing anything go up, but you're not seeing these losses either, because the worst you're ever going to see is what? 0, right? So, things have been going down for a while, they're bound to come back up, right? And lo and behold, in the 5th year, we finally see some gains coming again, and they're pretty good, double-digit gains. We've got 15%, okay? So on the market side, you're coming back up to $9,000. Wait a minute, didn't we start out with 10? Okay, so maybe not ideal. Now, on the S&P side, or excuse me, on the equity index side, you've been parked, remember, at your 12,100. Now we said the gain was 15%, but we're in the equity index strategy. What are you going to see? Right, 12%. So we're going to go up to 12%. That's going to bring you to $13,550. $13,550, not bad. That's about a $4,500, you're up about $4,500 from the market side in just 5 years. See, what people like about the equity index strategy is that they have the potential for those double-digit returns without any risk of losing their money. So, and if we position things and structure them properly, they're able to pull the money out completely tax-free. So they've managed to get a good rate of return, they've managed to avoid all losses, and they've managed to avoid taxes. Hence the tax battle. Let's talk about that for a minute. Let's look at an example of somebody who wants to retire in 30 years with $1 million. Okay? So there was a time when banks were getting 5%. So let's take a look at that. I'm just going to use something here to cover it. We get 5% interest. We've got 30 years, we want $1 million. What you need to do is put away $1,639.29 a month for the next 30 years, and you've got your $1 million. How many of these would you like? Oh, yeah, that is kind of a lot of money, isn't it? Okay, so let's look at our two battles. Let's first look at inflation. What if we could get a better rate of return? Okay, that goes down by $700. Okay, so now you've only got a $900 a month problem, right? Okay, next, let's look at the tax battle. What if we could win the tax battle? Let's put the money away tax deferred. $438 a month? You know, John, I think you could probably handle that. You're probably blowing that much already, right? Point is, a lot of people can put away $300-400 a month. See, it's not about having a ton of money. And at the end of step 6, people have a very clear picture of exactly how and when they are going to be completely financially independent. Think about that. If you had enough money right now in your nest egg, that you didn't have to work anymore, what would you be doing, John? Yeah, that's great. That sounds great. That's a great goal. See, really, financial independence is just about having options. It's about being able to do what you want, when you want, how you want. Now, if that happens to be you want to keep working, you have at it, right? You know, and it's not about having $10,000 to invest. You know, a commitment that I make to my clients is that if you will save for you at a decent interest rate while avoiding losses and avoiding taxes, you will reach that point where one day you're not going to be able to out earn your money, because your money is going to be out earning you. If you just put away what you can every month, get a decent interest rate, avoid losses, and avoid taxes, you will have a very, very clear picture of exactly how and when you are going to be financially independent. That's step 6. Okay? Step 7 is estate planning. Estate planning, what we're talking about is making sure you have a trust set up, having the will, power of attorney for health, power of attorney for finance, just making sure that you have everything set up so that if something should happen to you, your family is going to be okay. Those are the 7 steps. We've gone through a lot of information here today, John, and I'm just going to ask you to think about it here for a second, and I'm going to review the 7 steps real quick. I want you to think about if you could only pick 2, which 2 would they be? Between understanding what's happening with the money, increasing cash flow, eliminating debt, developing that emergency fund, protecting what you have with life insurance, building long-term financial independence, or estate planning. Which 2 would you pick if you had to? Only 2. Good choices, good choices. And what we do now, John, is something that we call a financial needs analysis. I'm just going to gather some information. I'm going to take it back to my office, and I'm going to plug it into our sophisticated software program. And what's going to happen then is it's going to be able to develop a plan of attack specifically designed for you to help bridge where you are now to where you really want to go, so that you can have that clear picture of exactly how and when you are going to be financially independent. Now I've got something, I just think I should discuss. Right around this time, usually people have a thought in their head and they're thinking, what's this going to cost me? So I'm going to tell you what I am going to expect from you when I come back for our second meeting. What I'm going to need from you is to have ready for me a big plate of still warm, fresh chocolate chip cookies that you baked, okay? And a nice tall glass of cold milk. Okay. I'm just kidding. You were getting pretty serious there for a minute. I had to lighten things up a little bit. No. One of the nice things about working with Federal Financial Group is that we are a brokerage. And I have contractual relationships with some of the best financial institutions there are. So if you choose to do business with one of them, they then pay me a finder's fee or a commission. So there is no direct investment out of your pocket. Okay? Now, John, if I am able to come up with a plan that you feel is really going to help you make that bridge and get where you want to go, be happy, feel good about your retirement, and you're completely comfortable with, would there be any reason why we couldn't do business? And if I do come up with that plan and we do business, would there be any reason why you wouldn't feel comfortable giving me the names of 3, maybe 4 people that you feel could benefit from my services as well? Okay, great. I'm going to start by asking you a few questions, and then we'll get to your scratch card.